For the last 3 weeks, I've been talking about your questionable claims paper, and this is the week that it's due. I recommend that you go back to the previous 3 weeks and to look at the questionable claims video sections to replay them, as well as to revisit the paper assignment instructions and the video on how to search for sources using PsycInfo to orient yourself a little bit more to this project. The goal of the paper is to pick a common claim and to use the database to find 2 peer-reviewed primary sources about this topic. Keep in mind that a primary source will have participants and results, and that I do want you to use PsycInfo rather than something like Google. You're going to go ahead and go through whether the results support the claim. So part of it involves summarizing the reading in order to clarify what these particular research papers have found in terms of the claim. When you summarize the sources, as a reminder, I don't want any quotes. I have a section on APA style in an earlier week that you can look through, but I want you to not quote your papers, but rather summarize them in your own words. I want you to focus on the results of the papers and once again to summarize them. I want your sources to be cited in APA style. As a reminder, I'm asking you to not secondary cite, so you should only have 2 sources throughout, your 2 different journal articles that you found, and you're going to be citing those sources whenever you mention them using APA style. So when you say source A found this, you should include a citation with it. As a reminder, a full citation includes the author or author's last name and the year. And a brief refresher, an in-text citation would include all the author's last names and the year following in parentheses. And a parenthetical citation would include the author's names and year all in parentheses. And when we're dealing with parentheses, the general grammatical rule of thumb is you should be able to remove the parentheses and the sentence should still make grammatical sense. If you have multiple authors that you cite more than once, specifically 3 to 5 authors, then you use a shortened citation the second time around, where you provide the author's first name and then et al. For the remaining authors. If you have more than 5, then you use the shortened notation right from the start. And once again, this is a very brief review. You can take a look at the APA style video for even more information, as well as the how to cite an APA style document. I want you to go ahead and provide information about what your sources found and whether they were in support of the claim or not. And once again, this involves understanding the results section. I want you to summarize the results of these papers and whether they supported the claim or didn't. I also want you to address whether the evidence was strong. I talk about this in an earlier week, so I recommend you go back through and take a look at that video. But keep in mind that strong evidence is evidence that has a lot of different types of evidence behind it. So for example, if they used multiple measurements or multiple populations, if they had a strong design using random assignment, those are all things that increase the strength of the argument that they're making. If they've done an attempt to eliminate alternatives, even if they can't randomly assign, that makes the study stronger than if they haven't attempted to eliminate alternative causes. And then there's credibility. Did the author address the limitations of the study, and do they express adequate skepticism? Keep in mind that one of the things that I recommended in the initial video was to be more skeptical of older sources, that if your sources come from the 1970s, I want you to be skeptical about this notion of strong evidence and credibility of the authors, because there may have been more recent research that goes against what those early authors might have found. When it comes to your conclusion, you can come to a few different results. You can conclude that both sources found the claim was supported. You can conclude that both sources found the claim was not supported, or you can determine partial support. So it might be that the claim only applies under specific conditions or with specific populations. You can reword the claim to better fit the data. So for example, you can say, it wasn't quite like this, but here's a better way of saying it. Opposites only attract under these specific circumstances. I also want you to provide a separate references page with your references formatted in APA style. The video where I go through how to find sources on PsycInfo goes through how to get information for your references page. You can also look at the how to format an APA style section for a little bit more guidance there. As a reminder, though, you can find the citation information in PsycInfo by clicking on the entry for a particular source and then using the Cite button over on the right-hand side and scrolling down until you find APA. That's going to be a really great start for you to provide an APA formatted references page.